Imagine hitting day 8 of an insane challenge and you suddenly realize something terrifying. Your motivation is completely gone. Every single day feels exactly the same. Wake up, stare at a wall, stress, repeat. If you fail, you just go back to your old life. Nobody cares if you quit, and no one is coming to save you. Well, that is the exact psychological crucible Bailey and Susie agreed to endure for 100 days. Plucked from their normal lives, stripped of daylight, and locked in a stark white room with a complete stranger. And the journey they went on, it is absolutely mind-bending.
So, you're probably wondering, why on earth would anyone volunteer for this? Well, how does a life-changing $500,000 sound? It's literally sitting right there in a massive vault, just waiting for them. But getting their hands on that cash requires paying a massive, massive psychological toll.
Here is the stark reality of their new world. 100 days. Two complete strangers who had never spoken a single word to each other before their blindfolds came off, and one giant, totally isolated white room. Sure, they have enough food to survive, a bathroom, and a bed, but make no mistake, this isn't about physical survival. It's the ultimate test of mental endurance.
Okay, let's dive right into the rules of this game, because they are brutally simple. Step 1, stay the full 100 days. Step 2, never ever cross the red line surrounding the exit door, or the money vanishes instantly. And Step 3, which honestly might be the hardest part, survive living with a complete stranger. Oh, and if one person leaves, they both get absolutely nothing.
Now, the environment itself is practically a character in the story. You see, the White Room wasn't just a physical space. It was a sensory manipulation trap. They were given identical, repetitive food, endless beaming bright lights that literally stung their eyes, and most importantly, zero sense of the outside world. No clocks, no windows, no concept of day or night. It was designed from minute one to test their grip on reality.
At first, there's this really strong sense of naive optimism. Bailey's initial strategy was just to accept it, figuring, hey, I'm just going to act like this is the new normal. Just put your head down and get through it, right? But the reality of total isolation sets in incredibly fast. Like we talked about earlier, by day 8, that initial motivation completely vanishes. They start to realize that successful people don't win because they always feel motivated. They win because they keep going even when they feel nothing. From that point on, they were done waiting to feel ready. Discipline decides everything.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how fast things went off the rails. By only the second day, their internal clocks were completely shattered. Because they couldn't track the sun, they took what they thought was a short little nap, only to accidentally wake up and start their entire morning routine at 2:37 a.m. Within 48 hours, they were entirely unmoored from time itself.
So, as we track the chronological milestones of the first month, the experiment rapidly escalates. The host starts offering temptations to break up their mind-numbing routine. On day 10, a private chef. Day 20, luxurious smart beds to escape the glaring lights. Day 30, simple comforts like coffee and books. But wait, these definitely weren't gifts.
This introduced the ultimate temptation trap. To make their lives in the White Room even slightly easier, they had to spend their own prize money. Every 10 days brought a new psychological test. Do you suffer in sheer boredom to keep your $500,000 intact? Or do you chip away at your life-changing prize just to preserve your sanity?
$10,000. Let that sink in for a second. That is what it cost them to buy a simple coffee maker on day 30. And it was another 10 grand for basic spices and another 10 grand for some Harry Potter books. I mean, in the real world, this is absolute financial madness. But in an isolation chamber, paying 10 grand for a taste of coffee is a desperate bid just to feel human again.
They actually held out for 30 whole days without buying a thing, but the crushing weight of having nothing to do finally broke them. Susie perfectly summarized it, saying they were hitting a point where boredom was at an all-time high. Waking up with literally nothing to do, just staring at a blank white wall, that sheer lack of stimulus is what finally pushed them to start opening their vault.
Which brings us to the day 50 mark, and what I can only describe as emotional extortion. The host offered them a brief visit with their parents through a glass window. The price tag? $20,000. Now, it happened to be Susie's mother's birthday, and after 50 days of staring at the exact same walls and the exact same person, the emotional leverage here was absolutely massive.
So they took the deal. And the contrast here is fascinating. In strict financial terms, $20,000 for a 10-minute chat through glass is a terrible trade. But Susie called it the best 10K ever spent. That psychological lifeline at the exact halfway mark provided the critical emotional fuel they needed to keep going. But the psychological games were far, far from over. By day 60, they faced a massive blind gamble. The host brought in a giant mystery box and asked for $50,000 to keep whatever was hidden inside. No clues, no hints. Bailey and Susie nervously debated it back and forth, but ultimately rejected the offer. They played it safe.
And here is the devastating irony of that choice. The host opened the box to reveal $50,000 in cash, meaning they would have literally gotten their money back, along with the keys to 2 brand new Teslas. The producers had been listening to their conversations and knew Susie had explicitly said the only thing she'd spend big money on was a Tesla. They dangled her exact dream right in front of her.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the profound psychological regret that haunted them for days afterward. Susie admitted she felt physically sick. She couldn't sleep, obsessing over the loss. The mental pain of missing out on her dream car was actually worse than the daily boredom of the room itself. The host had successfully gotten deep inside their heads.
So, to make up for that devastating blow, day 70 featured a massive negotiation. The host brought back almost everything they had previously rejected. Beds, a TV, a chef, a new mystery box, items originally worth well over $120,000. He told them to submit a blind bid. If they bid higher than his secret number, they got it all. They used a brilliant anchor pricing strategy, bidding exactly $100,000 and $1. They beat his secret number of $69,000, and suddenly, the White Room was transformed into a luxury suite.
You would think this is where the story gets easy, right? They have real beds, a TV, movies, amazing food, but it revealed a shocking paradox. Having everything actually made them hate each other. When they had nothing, they relied on each other for entertainment. But surrounded by luxury, their conflicting personalities were suddenly magnified tenfold.
These petty, agonizing conflicts just started erupting. Bailey would use up all the hot water in the showers. Susie would completely refuse to finish games of Monopoly, so Bailey literally hid the dice from her. Their sleep schedules violently clashed. By day 90, the relationship was at an absolute breaking point, and they could barely stand to be in the same room.
Let's move ahead and see how all of this builds to the final, most terrifying test of the entire isolation challenge. Day 100 finally arrived. They packed their bags, put their blindfolds on, and prepared to leave. But the experiment wasn't over. The host had one last chaotic twist waiting right at the finish line.
They were suddenly forced into a classic prisoner's dilemma, with the remaining $360,000 on the line. Here are the mechanics. They could both choose split and walk away with $180,000 each. But if one person chose steal while the other split, the stealer takes all $360,000. And the absolute worst-case scenario? If they both hit steal, the money burns and they both walk away with absolutely nothing after 100 days of pure torture.
The paranoia in those final moments was absolutely intense. They were given noise-canceling headphones, so they couldn't coordinate at all. Susie captured the breakdown of trust perfectly, asking, "What do you say to somebody that steals?" Bailey had just spent weeks annoying her, hiding her dice, acting like a frustrating sibling. Could she trust him? Could he trust her? The temptation of taking the entire pot for yourself is a massively heavy weight on human nature.
This became the ultimate question of their survival. It wasn't about the White Room anymore. It was about what happens to human trust when you strip absolutely everything else away. After 100 days of psychological torture, bonding, and petty hatred, will trust actually survive when hundreds of thousands of dollars are on the line?
The answer, remarkably, is yes. The room flashed green. Both Bailey and Susie chose to split the money. Despite all the annoyances, the boredom, and the clashing schedules, they recognized that they both endured the exact same crucible. They chose shared triumph and their unique friendship over ultimate greed, each walking away with a life-changing $180,000.
It's an absolutely incredible resolution to an intense social experiment, but it leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question to ask ourselves. Looking at the reality of human nature, the crushing boredom, the frustration, and the lure of absolute wealth, if you were trapped for 100 days with a stranger, would you have split the money or stolen it? Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.